In this video, we are going to explain what a blockchain is in very basic terms. By the end of the video, you'll be able to explain this life-changing technology to those you love, saving them from the authoritative dictatorships that never cease to control your every move. Nevertheless, we don't really discuss politics on this channel, mostly just ideas, so let's get into it. What is a block? In terms of cryptocurrency, a block is just a bunch of data. In fact, the data could be almost anything, but usually it's just a collection of records. For the numero uno crypto, Bitcoin, this data is literally just a list of transactions. For example, it might look like this. X pays Y $50, A pays B $80, and Y pays H $15. If we're dealing with Ethereum, it's usually just transactions, but it can be a few other things, like things called smart contracts, which are really neat, but we'll have time to explain them in another video. For other altcoins, they could be the usage of your Wi-Fi, or files, or documents. Nonetheless, a block is just a collection of records. For this example, to explain what a blockchain is, I'm going to stick with a record of transactions, like in Bitcoin. Specifically, we call this record a ledger because it is a record of value exchanging hands. Now, one thing you need to know is that blocks do have limits, and they can only have so many transactions in them, so we have to keep adding more blocks. For our example, Bitcoin has an average of around 1,500 transactions in one block right now. Now, this number changes, but you don't really need to know why. Just know that these blocks do fill up, and then we have to do something with them. Well, what do we do when these blocks are full? We add them to the network. Now you might be asking, how do we do that? Well, we do something called mine them. And since Bitcoin is a proof of work model, we have to prove that we mined them. This brings us to something called a hash. So the next big question is, what is a hashing function? A hashing function is a system where you can put something into it and it'll output a hash. Now there's a ton of math happening inside this magical black box, but essentially you give it something and it gives you something. In this case, Bitcoin uses the SHA-256 hashing function. SHA stands for Secure Hashing Algorithm, and 256 refers to the amount of zeros and ones that it has in whatever it puts out. So whether you put in your name or the entire dictionary, it'll always output 256 zeros and ones. Now, our computers are smart, so they convert these 0 to 1s to letters and numbers, and it is a complicated process and could be a video on its own, but essentially, with hashing functions, you need to know three main things. Number one, you can't find the input of a hash, you have to guess and check. So if you give it A, it will give you D. Then if you give it AA, it'll give you J. And then if you give it AAA, it'll give you U. Imagine if you wanted to find out what gave you an F. You'd have to just keep adding more A's until you found it. The second thing you need to know about hashing functions is that changing the input just a tiny bit changes the output a lot. So basically, if you do SHA-256 of this subscribe to our channel, you get this as the output. However, if you do please subscribe to our channel, you get this. See, these are completely different, even though we added one word. And lastly, the third thing you need to know is that calculating the hash takes some time. Now, it might only take a few milliseconds for one tiny string of text, but if you have an entire book that you're doing, or if you want to check a few million variations of it, it starts to rack up time and computing power. And so what Bitcoin is doing whenever you mine it is we're trying to add random numbers to whatever the block is so that we get a special ending. For example, let's say we're trying to mine this. X pays Y $50, A pays B $50, and Y pays H $15. You'll get this as the output. Now, this is what Bitcoin is doing. We ask ourselves, what number do we have to add to the end of that list to get a 0 at the end of the hash? Well, if we start at 0, and then we check it with 1, and then we check it with 2, and we use my little Python program, we figure out that it takes 3 different checks to get to the first one, which is when you put a 2 at the end of it. Now, let's make it a little harder. Let's try 2 zeros at the end of the hash. After running my little Python miner, we figure out it takes 438 tries until you hit the first hash that ends with 00. And lastly, just to drive the topic home that it takes a lot more time to find these hashes, let's look at how many times we have to guess for it to get 5 zeros. If we run the program, we get a huge number. So as we look for more zeros, it takes a lot more time to check it. And essentially, Bitcoin is looking for a lot of zeros, and computers all around the world and mining farms are mining away to find the right number. When they do, we say that that block is solved and verified, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The next thing to know about a blockchain is that it is decentralized. Now, this doesn't have to be really confusing, so think about it like this. Centralized means one person controls it. For example, your grades in high school. Only your teacher had access to add in your grades or change it. They could flunk you if they didn't like you, and nothing personal here, but maybe you just didn't understand what they were teaching because they sucked at teaching. Anyways, decentralized means that more than one person can have access to look at and change your grades. Imagine if all of your classmates were allowed allowed to look at the answers on the test and give you a grade based on your papers and your tests. Imagine if they could vote on what grade you got instead of just your teacher. Now this is essentially what decentralized means. Instead of one person having a list of all the Bitcoin transactions, literally anyone who wants to can have them and look at them. And not only that, because this is the important part, anyone can mine and actually vote on the blockchain. This means they can say, Bill really did pay John $50. Or they can make fake transactions and say, John paid Bill all of his money. So you might be asking, how do you make sure that someone doesn't make a fake transaction and spend all of my money? Well, that's a problem that is solved by using asymmetric encryption with cryptocurrency wallets. It's a little confusing, and we just finished a few videos on it, so you should go check those out after this video. But bringing us back to what decentralized means, that begs the question, why would a group of teenagers want to look at your papers and tests? Even more so, why would they want to spend a lot of time looking at them and then grade the tests? Well, in this analogy, they would be paid to. Almost in every blockchain, you get a reward for participating and putting in good votes. For example, for mining Bitcoin, you get paid in Bitcoin. I hope that analogy makes sense. So far, we've been over what a block is, it's just a bunch of data, what a hashing function is, it's to make sure that people actually put in work to participate in the blockchain, and we've went over what decentralized means. It basically means that one person does not control it. So if you're still with us after me explaining these interesting topics, please consider clicking that like button. It gives us fuzzy feelings inside and promotes our hard work. Next up, let's learn why it's actually called a blockchain. With Bitcoin, there are two extra things you need to know about. One, whoever solves the block and finds the magical hash that has however many numbers of zeros we're looking for, they add Whiteboard Crypto's account received 2 Bitcoins for mining at the top of the block, and this is their mining reward. This is how more Bitcoins are actually created, although that number 2 changes and it gets smaller and smaller as time goes on. Secondly, you need to know that they add the hash of the last block to it. So the password of the last block gets added to this block, and that hash is actually used to calculate this block's hash. So this makes it a chain, since each block refers to the last one. Now this is where the magic of the blockchain works. If you try to go back and edit an old block, the newer ones all change because you've messed up that hash that it pointed to. Remember when we talked about the hashing function and SHA-256? If you change it just a little bit, it changes the entire thing. Well, that's how we can make sure someone doesn't go back and add more money into their account in an old block. In a sense, whatever gets added to the blockchain is written down in history forever because it can't be changed. Now this is actually really good for things like transactions, but it's bad for things like copyrighted material or embarrassing things. 'Tis the nature of the internet though. So in conclusion, we have blocks that consist of data, and in the case of cryptocurrency, it's usually a list of transactions. Next, after we have a block, we have to find the password to that block, or basically what is the hash that solves that block, and miners do this by guessing and checking until they hit the jackpot, and then after they find the solution to that block, they make sure that it's linked to the last block. So each block actually has the history of every transaction on it, because it refers to a previous block. Now since each block is connected to the last block, this makes it a chain. That's what a blockchain is. I hope that we've made this confusing topic a little more helpful for you to understand. Thanks for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, please give us a like to reward our hard work, and think about subscribing for more amazing videos just like this one. We hope to see you in the next video. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what an NFT is, because honestly, we were looking them up and they are really confusing. So in this video, you're going to learn exactly what they are, why they are valuable, because that was our biggest question, and what the buying process looks like. So a non-fungible token, also known as an NFT, is a type of digital token or asset. A common analogy is to think of these as digital trading cards or digital paintings. Whenever you buy an NFT, you are basically just buying the rights to that specific asset. Now, non-fungible means that it can't be changed whenever it is created. You can't split it up, and it must be distinguishable from something else. Unlike a Bitcoin, one Bitcoin is the exact same as another Bitcoin. Well, with NFTs, they're never the same. They're always different. And also, a token is just a small piece of data that you own. Together, an NFT is a token that you own that doesn't change throughout time. So that's the basics. But when it comes down to the technicals, what exactly is an NFT? Well, NFTs are actually just a piece of data that is owned by an address. And whoever has the password to that address, they own that piece of data. And this piece of data can be bought and sold to different addresses. And that data is verified on a blockchain. And you can actually check the owner history is always trackable with an NFT. For example, this CryptoKitty that sold for $600,000 is essentially just a small URL that is owned by an address. The only thing that person owns is a tiny piece of data. Now that piece of data points to a server somewhere that usually hosts an image. And technically, whoever owns that server could change the image. And it's important to know what you are actually buying when you buy an NFT. You are buying a piece of data that points to a server that hosts either an image or a GIF. You should know that the server could change, or that the image and GIF could change. It's actually the specific piece of data that you actually own on the blockchain, not the access to the server and not the image or the GIF, but rather that tiny piece of data that points to the server. So in a sense, when you buy an NFT, you're buying a small piece of data that represents something larger. Kind of like buying a stock. You're not buying the entire company, and unless it's a dividend stock, you're not actually getting anything from it. So this brings us to the question, why would you want to buy an NFT? And there's many reasons, but right now the main reason most people are buying is because they see NFTs as collectibles in the investment category. So let's go over 4 main things that make an NFT valuable. Number 1, first. So just like Bitcoin is so popular because it was the first cryptocurrency, the first NFTs of specific creators or businesses will also have value. For example, Pokemon cards are quickly gaining popularity, and the most expensive cards are those that were produced in the first edition. So let's say if you have the first United States NFT, it will likely have some perceived value. The second thing that makes an NFT valuable is its utility, which in other words is the real world benefits. So imagine if Elvis Presley was still alive and he sold 50 NFTs. Now by owning one of them, you could have lifetime access to any of the shows that he participated in. Now these NFTs would quickly become popular and very expensive due to their real world benefits. Personally, this is the only reason I would buy an NFT, is if it had a real world benefit. And I think in the future, almost all NFTs will evolve to have this sort of aspect. Creators will sell NFTs for income, and in return, have a membership community or do a monthly lunch meeting or something in that fashion. The third thing that makes an NFT valuable is if it's unique or rare. So for example, think of the Mona Lisa. Anyone can have a copy of the Mona Lisa in their room, but only one person, or a museum in this case, can hang up the real painting by Leonardo da Vinci for everyone to view. Now the same goes for the original Constitution of the United States, or a Babe Ruth signed baseball. They are rare. Imagine if Stephen Hawking only minted 3 NFTs. They would be very valuable because there's only 3 originals. Even if they're just pictures of the universe. Other people could have that picture, but they wouldn't have the original one minted by Stephen Hawking. The last thing that I've found that makes an NFT valuable is ownership history. So for example, what's your favorite celebrity? Mine personally is Robert Downey Jr. So let's say he decides to sell his leather jacket and buy a new one. Well, when he first bought that leather jacket, maybe he paid $200 for it. But me, I might pay $800 just to have the same jacket that Robert Downey Jr. wore. Now the same goes for NFTs. Someone might be willing to pay $1 million of an image of a duck that Barack Obama owned at one point. So keeping these in mind, you should think about what actually makes an NFT valuable. If an NFT is the first of its kind, if it has a real world benefit, if it's rare, and if someone important owned it. These are questions to ask yourself during valuation of an NFT. For example, does buying Jack Dorsey's first tweet for $2.5 million fit any of these? Let's go down the list. Is it a first? Yes, it actually is the first NFT in that category. Second, does it have utility? It does not. You don't get to change the tweet and you don't get to advertise your business or something like that. Third, is it unique? Yes, it is unique. Lastly, what about its ownership history? Well, this is actually a no. Yes, it is Jack Dorsey's first tweet, but nobody famous has actually owned the specific NFT yet. To fit this category, for example, maybe it was my tweet and then PewDiePie owned it. Then the answer would be yes. But in this example, it only checks 2 of the boxes. So if you buy his first tweet, you're basically betting that someone else in the future will want to buy it for a higher price. Because holding that NFT does absolutely nothing for you. There is no utility. You're buying it as a novelty or as an investment. Unless one day Jack Dorsey says whoever holds that NFT he'll have lunch with once a month. Then the value would skyrocket. So now that we have kind of went over what they are and how they work, let's go over how popular they quickly become. Just look at this Google Trends data of searches in February and March in 2021. In fact, that's what inspired this video. We knew absolutely nothing, and so we created this video to help people because all the stuff that we were looking up was very, very confusing. So if this video clears anything up for you, make sure to click that like button. Also, as a newer channel, you might consider subscribing because it helps us immensely, as this video actually took hours to research, write, and animate. Moving on, I'd like to tell you the 11 most valuable NFTs. Now this might get a little rambly and you can skip ahead if you don't want to listen to them. Number 1. CryptoPunk 6965. In February 19, 2021, it sold for 800 Ethereum. Next we have CryptoPunk 4156, which sold for 650 Ethereum in February 18th, 2021. Third, we have CryptoPunk 2890, which sold for 605 Ethereum in January 24th, 2021. Then we have the famous Dragon CryptoKitty, which sold for 600 Ethereum. CryptoPunk 6487, which sold for 550 Ethereum. Next up, we have some land in the Decentralized world, around 12,600 square meters. It sold for 514 Ethereum. Next is something called Hashmask 9939, which sold for 420 Ethereum. This really interesting car concept, the F1 Delta Time, actually sold for 415 Ethereum. Another CryptoPunk sold for 400 Ethereum, and an actual lot of land in the Decentralized world sold for 345 Ethereum. And the famous Nyan Cat sold for 300 Ethereum on February 19th, 2021. So another important question to ask about NFTs is, can someone copy your NFT? Well, technically, yes. Someone can copy an NFT just like any other piece of artwork, but the original NFT address can be traced back to the original creator since all NFTs have a log of their transaction history. It's also important to note someone could create a new NFT that points to the exact same hosting address that the original NFT does, or they could point it to a different address that is of the same image or GIF. Now, the value in an NFT is not the image, it's the specific piece of data. Just like I could make a free throw at my local YMCA, and LeBron James could toss one in while 30,000 people are watching. Even though these are basically the same thing, one has way more value based on what other people think of it. I may be doing the exact same thing LeBron is doing, but people value his free throw way more than mine. Another question you might have moving into the NFT space is, how do you buy an NFT? Because purchasing an NFT is actually quite simple, and it's probably the same difficulty as purchasing a stock of a company. Now, you should know most NFTs are sold on marketplaces, kind of like eBay, Amazon, and Facebook Marketplace, but that specialize in NFTs. One thing that might be a drawback of buying NFTs is that they are usually purchased with Ethereum, so you'll likely need to own some actual Ethereum before you purchase a CryptoKitty or an NBA Top Shot. Buying cryptocurrency and trading it to a wallet that you can buy an NFT usually takes some technical skill on transferring crypto, because if you do it incorrectly, you could lose all of your money in the transaction. So here are the 4 most commonly used NFT exchanges that allow you to buy and sell NFTs. app.rarible.com, niftygateway.com, OpenSea.io, and superrare.co. So whenever you go to buy an NFT, the first step is to create an account on that specific website. Step number 2 is that you'll either have to buy crypto on another exchange and then transfer it to the wallet on that exchange. You should know NFT wallets are very similar to any other cryptocurrency wallet. They usually have a public and a private key. And for those wanting the technicals, most are based on the ERC721 protocols. But I promised that I would not get too technical in this video. And then lastly, you can actually bid like an auction and pay for whatever NFT that you're attempting to buy. And if you win, that NFT will get added to your account and then stored in your wallet. Which brings us to the next question. Where do you store your NFT? Because now that you've purchased your NFT, you're probably wondering where the heck you store it. Well, you store it on a wallet. You'll want to make sure that it's safe and accessible to show your friends and other people what you've recently purchased. Now, the best way to store your NFTs is on a hardware wallet. Something along the lines of a Ledger Nano, where it can be offline and protected. But if you're wanting to keep it online, here are some online applications that host wallets for you. MetaMask.io, TrustWallet.com, and Engine.io. And if we were to go any further in on this process, it would probably take quite a bit of technical knowledge, so I'm sorry to say that's where this video ends. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope it clears up some confusion. Ending this video, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you get future Whiteboard Crypto videos just like this one. We promise to keep it simple for you. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one. Have you ever heard of Kickstarter? It's where when you have an idea but you don't have the money, you basically make a page and show off your idea in hopes that other people donate to your project. For example, I might have an idea for a book that explains cryptocurrency ideas and concepts. Well, I'd create a page and say that I have a goal of getting $1,000 in donations. In turn for people donating, I'll give out a book to everyone who donates at least $10. So I run the campaign and it takes around a week and I come up with $1,300 in donations. Kickstarter will hold that money for me, and since I reached my goal of $1,000, it'll give me all of the money that has been donated. However, if I didn't reach the $1,000 goal because, for example, my grandma didn't donate or something, then I wouldn't get anything and all of that money would be returned to the people that donated it. A smart contract is exactly like this. It's a piece of code that does something if something else happens. A lot of people call it if this, then that. The most common smart contracts are written on the Ethereum network using something called Solidity. So let's go over some examples of purposes of smart contracts. You could write a piece of code that says, if you give me 5 Ethereum, in turn, I will give you 20 basic attention tokens. If you have at least 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, 20 Ethereum will be added to your account. And if the temperature is over 95 degrees for more than 4 days in a row this year, Farmer John's account will receive $100,000 as crop insurance. Now, it would be really easy to write a smart contract where people could donate Ethereum to a certain address. And then if that contract address reached a certain point, maybe say 500 Ethereum, then we could give each donor a portion of an online work, such as an artistic NFT, or access to read an online book, or even join a community. The purposes of smart contracts are endless. But when it comes to smart contracts, there are 2 main things that you need to know that makes them beneficial to everyone. Number 1, they are immutable. This means they cannot change. So you remember how I said some people call them if this, then that? It's because most smart contracts do something when they get triggered. They are basically just code on the blockchain that gets ran. And once it's on the blockchain, it can never be changed. Now the downside of this, you might be thinking, is that if there is a bug or the code is inefficient, it will be a bug and it will be inefficient forever. However, if you wanted to, you could just create a new smart contract and tell people not to use the old one. In fact, this happens very often. The second thing you need to know is that they are distributed. This means there's no discrepancies. You can't hire a lawyer and be like, that wasn't our agreement. These smart contracts are an agreement between a few parties online that can be automatically executed if certain conditions are met. Smart contracts are a piece of code designed to remove human error and issues. In fact, you couldn't hire a lawyer even if you wanted to. The code is on a bunch of computers around the world. In fact, anyone, if they wanted to, could see your smart contract and how you participated with it. So now we have financial agreements that nobody can argue because they are code, they don't change, and everybody has access to them. Now you might not understand what the power of technology like this is, but to help you get the hang of it, let's go over some examples. Number 1, a flash loan. What if I told you that you could borrow $10 million with no money down? Well, on the Ethereum network, you absolutely can, but only if you write a smart contract that pays it back in the exact same minute that it is borrowed. That's right, you can borrow millions of dollars to do something for you on the Ethereum network if you know how to code it. So here's the catch. All of the money must be paid back. So you may be wondering, why would we want to do this? Well, imagine you could buy some Dogecoin for 50 cents on Coinbase and then sell it for 55 cents on Gemini. You could theoretically borrow $10 million and buy a whole bunch of Dogecoin on Coinbase and then sell it to Gemini and then pay back the original loan of $10 million with some interest. This is called a flash loan, and some guy made $360,000 in a few minutes. By creating one of these, that did pretty much the example that I just described. Here's the kicker. The smart contract can check itself. It can run a simulation of what you programmed, and it can see if what you told it to do would actually be able to pay back the lender after it does the code. And if it can do that, if it can immediately pay back the lender, it runs the code and you can borrow those funds to do whatever you want to do. You could never do this with traditional finance, but you can on the blockchain. Next up, we have number 2, which is insurance. Did you know you can create an entire insurance company with just a few smart contracts? We would just write something simple like this. If Farmer John gives us $2,000, and if it is more than 95 degrees for 4 days in a row in Missouri, pay Farmer John $10,000. So this is basically insurance. Farmer John can be sure that if his crops die from a heat wave, the smart contract will know that it happened due to temperature changes and pay him out his $100,000 insurance. Now you might be asking, how the heck does a smart contract, a piece of code, know what the temperature in Missouri is? Well, with the help of something called oracles. So oracles are helpful tools to any smart contract. Essentially, they are a trusted source that gives real-world information to anything on the blockchain that requests it. Now oracles can get confusing, so we'll leave those for another video. You just need to know they send real-world data to a smart contract. Now another question you might be wondering is, where does the initial $100,000 come from? Well, you'd have to imagine that investors who wanted to start that insurance company would have to pool their money together to be able to front it. In fact, they would have to lock it up in that smart contract whenever Farmer John buys it. They cannot do anything with those funds until the end of the summer, because at that moment, the smart contract owns that money. Then at the end of the summer, if the insurance has not been paid out to Farmer John, the initial investment of $100,000 plus Farmer John's $2,000 premium get paid back to the investors. Now insurance could be, and probably is going to be, a very profitable use of smart contracts. Number 3, we have token switching. So when it comes to smart contracts, one of the most useful things that you can do is create a pool of money with 2 different tokens. You write smart contracts to allow traders to switch out one token for another token. And as one increases in volume, you increase the price of the other token. This way you keep steady value in the pool. This is roughly how a decentralized exchange works. And if you're curious what that is, you can check out our recent video on something called Uniswap. That video explains it beautifully. You can write a smart contract that says, if you give me 20 apples, I'll give you 30 coconuts. Except the apples and coconuts are Ethereum and basic attention token. So a smart contract can allow you to switch tokens. Token switching opens up a whole new world for day traders or investors that want to get into a specific coin that isn't currently on a major exchange like Coinbase. Instead, they could buy a coin that is available and then use the decentralized exchange to swap those tokens. And lastly, our last example of a useful reason to have a smart contract is to buy a house. So if you haven't already, you should watch our videos on NFTs, because you need to understand those and their purpose to get this example. So imagine you took the house or the apartment that you're living in and you took the deed and you put it on the blockchain. It's not owned by you anymore or the bank. In fact, it's owned by whoever has the deed on the blockchain. There might be a day where we can use a smart contract to buy and sell a house. Instead of going through the usual process that takes weeks, advertising the house, securing the funding, using escrow, getting insurance, and the dreaded closing. You could just send an offer right on the blockchain, and within minutes, the other person can accept or deny. If they accept, you immediately own the new deed, but the other person immediately has your payment. Now, this would be very useful for anyone wanting to get into the real estate market, but are stopped by the high fees, or even banks who want to have a higher profit margin on their mortgages. Imagine if you could buy and sell a house as quickly and easily as you can buy and sell a stock. With blockchain, that would be possible. So as we end this video, we hope that you've learned something valuable from it. And if you have, consider leaving a like to reward our hard work and possibly subscribing to see more awesome cryptocurrency and decentralized finance explainer videos like this. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video. Hey, in this video, you're going to learn about something called staking. But first, you probably want to watch our video on the proof of work consensus model, which is the method that Bitcoin uses to keep track of how much money everyone has. It's a bit difficult to understand, but once you get it, this proof of stake model, which is very similar, will be much easier to understand. So what is proof of stake? Well, here's a textbook answer first, and then I'll explain it so easy that a 5-year-old could understand. Proof of stake is a blockchain verification method that is much more energy efficient and less risky than the more common proof of work method. Only one miner is chosen at a time to validate the blockchain, but that miner must lock up some of their coins as collateral to be chosen. The miner is punished for creating any fraudulent transactions by losing their collateral, and rewarded for good transactions by the creation of new coins and possibly with the transaction fees that the senders paid. So if you understood that, you probably don't need to watch this video, but if you don't understand it, watch this video and you'll understand it by the end. It took me a while to fully understand what proof of stake is, and I'll try my best to put it into layman's terms for you guys. First, I'm going to tell you why proof of work sucks. In fact, we have proof of stake to fix the things that proof of work sucks at. So think of it like this. In proof of work, let's say you have runners lining up for a race. All 8 racers are racing to the finish line, but you have some racers that have an advantage given the amount of resources they have. Kind of like they have stronger legs, or they weigh less, or they've trained longer. Even though all racers get to the finish line eventually, only one person wins and they get the reward, which might be a shiny Bitcoin, while the other runners still had to run down the track. And those who didn't win essentially wasted their energy for no reward. And with proof of stake, all the runners would line up at the starting line, and then only a single racer would be selected based on a few factors, which we'll talk about here soon. This way, we don't waste electricity or energy, and nobody runs without getting a reward. When it comes to coins that use proof of work, like Bitcoin, many large mining companies compete to solve a block's reward the fastest. Proof of work also isn't fair to the DIY miners who don't have access to very powerful machines or supercomputers that can win the puzzle-solving task the quickest. With cryptocurrencies, we want there to be lots of miners so that the coin is truly decentralized and so that the blockchain is safe. If those large mining companies join together, they could actually start making fake transactions because the blockchain is a majority vote. If they get even 51%, you can kiss your Bitcoins goodbye. So this is a big problem, and proof of stake attempts to fix this by only selecting one validator, which is the word that proof of stake cryptocurrencies call miners. The validator, or the miner, then gets to solve the puzzle and earn the reward, while other validators double check them. It's a lot more fair this way. One key thing when it comes to proof of stake is that since only one validator is selected, it's very important that they solve it correctly, because otherwise they'll have to select someone else, wait for them to solve it correctly, and it just takes a lot of time. And in the crypto space, time is money. So to solve this problem, we make sure that those participators lock up some of their coins, and then other validators can actually double check their work. And if those validators were wrong, we penalize them and take some of the coins that they locked up. This process of locking up their coins as collateral is called staking. So in short, to participate in a proof of work coin, you have to own some of that coin. Then you lock it up so you can't use it, and you wait so that the network will pick you to mine. When you get picked, if you mine correctly, you get what's called a staking reward, usually some of the coin. And if you mine incorrectly, you actually get penalized and lose some of the coin that you initially locked up. Moving on, the way that we select who gets to be the validator is important too, because in many cases, proof of stake coins will bias those who are staking the most coins because they have the most to lose. But sometimes we also calculate in how long they have been locking up those coins, because if they have them and they haven't lost them, they're probably making lots of good calculations. If we only select them based on the age of their stake though, or who has the most stake, we would probably also secretly be biasing the big and rich mining facilities again. And to solve this, we also add in a bit of a random number picker. And I'm not going to go much into that in this video because honestly, I'm not completely sure about it either. But it is a factor in the validator selection process. So now you might understand there's a good incentive for validators to correctly verify the blockchain and a good selection process to reduce energy waste. And I hope this clears things up a little bit. If it did, please leave a like below because it helps our channel grow. It takes a lot of time to research, narrate, animate, and promote videos like this. And if it doesn't clear things up, leave a comment below and let us know what's confusing so maybe we can break it down even further in a future video. But now that you kind of know how it works, let's go over the risks and rewards. So there's a few risks when it comes to staking your cryptocurrency. Risk number one is that there's something called the locking period. When you go to stake your coin, it'll be moved into what is called a locked state. And during this time, you will not be able to move your coins. You can't send them and you can't cash them out. Sometimes you have to lock them up for a certain amount of time, like maybe a month minimum, all the way up to a year. This is a risk. Risk number two is technical knowledge. In almost every case, it's not as easy as just downloading some software and then pushing a button. You usually have to know how to code, how to set up your computer to validate, and how to accept rewards into a wallet. And if there's an issue, you are responsible to fix it. Risk number three is validator commission. So if you don't want to, you don't have to set up the validation process yourself. You can give your coins to someone else who has the knowledge and equipment to do it. These platforms usually require a validator commission for the use of their computers, and this commission could cut into your profit, and they could run away with your deposit at any time. Risk four is the rewards duration. So depending on the network that you choose, it could take minutes, days, and sometimes even weeks to see the payout of your staking position. This is why it's crucial to see the network's reward payout time. Last, we have risk number five, which is bad behavior. So proof of stake is built on validators, and if the validation turns out to be bad, you will lose some of that stake. And there's a very, very small chance that you actually have a good validation, but the network says that you're wrong. Nobody really mentions this because the likelihood is very very low, but it is still a risk. And lastly, I want to go over the reason that we would stake, because you do get staking rewards. Currently, I'm going to go over 4 of the most popular staking cryptocurrencies. The first one is Tezos, which rewards you around 6% of what you stake per year. And Coinbase does it for you. You don't have to set up any of that process, but they take around 1.5% of it, which lowers your yearly return to 4.6. Second, Cardano is another coin that does staking. They will give out around 4 to 5%. The Algo coin rewards you with around 8 to 10% a year. And lastly, Ethereum, which is actually switching to Ethereum 2.0, could be up to 15%, but more reliably probably around 4 to 7%. But this won't happen for at least another year. So proof of stake has quite a few benefits over proof of work, but it has downsides too. Like, it can invalidate DIY GPU miners who want to participate without owning a whole bunch of the coin. But maybe I'll go over more of long-term downsides of proof of stake in another video. I hope this video helped you understand what proof of stake is, and if you liked it, be sure to subscribe because we're planning to release many similar helpful videos soon. We'll see you in the next video. What is proof of work? Whether you're new to cryptocurrency or you've been doing research for a while, you've most likely heard the debate between proof of work and its counterpart, proof of stake. If you're interested in learning more about proof of stake, check out our video that we just published over it. Now, some investors think proof of work is better, and while it does have features that aren't desirable, it was the very first consensus mechanism, and the big bad Bitcoin model still uses it. So keep watching to learn exactly what proof of work is and why it's still a leading model for the crypto community. So first, let's understand consensus mechanisms. Because to understand what proof of work is, first we need to know what a consensus model is and why it is needed. In a normal database system that holds information, for example a medical report cards, a single person or a computer is given the responsibility to manage the entire database. It is only their job to update, maintain, delete, and add new patient information to the database. In fact, nobody else has access to it. Technically, if they wanted to, they could delete your account, or they could say that you owe them $10,000 at their will. For blockchains, this is completely different. Being what is called a distributed ledger, this technology is what we call self-governing, which means there isn't one person who can control it or make changes. Instead, contributions come from all of the hundreds of thousands of users who participate in the network to make it function properly. If one person said that you owed them $10,000, they would be quickly outed as a fraud by the rest of the people on the network that are checking them. This is the first benefit of a consensus model. In an ever-changing system like the blockchain, you need a reliable, fair, real-time, efficient, and transparent mechanism that will ensure that transactions are executed and genuine, and that there's something called a consensus on the network. Now that was a lot of words, but if you're curious what consensus means, it means that everyone is on the same page. Essentially, let's say if Bob pays Alice $10, we want to make sure that everyone knows what actually happened, and also that Bob's account goes down $10 and Alice's goes up $10. Proof of work is one way to make sure that everyone has the same database, that they reach consensus. Now in the blockchain, instead of one person having a record of those medical records, everyone participating has it. They have their own logs of what is going on. This way the information is public and it can't be frauded or controlled by one authority. However, like I said earlier, you need a way to make sure everyone is on the same page. This distributed ledger is how we do that. Everyone has their own record. But how do we make sure everyone has the same record? Now that we have an idea of what a consensus mechanism is, let's dive into proof of work that solves the problem of everyone having the same record. If you search the word proof of work on Google or other search engines, you'd be told that proof of work is a consensus mechanism on the Bitcoin network. And yes, it is a consensus mechanism, but there's a lot more to it. In technical terms, proof of work is an algorithm or system that uses a significant amount of effort to deter or eliminate fake uses of computing power. Launched on the Bitcoin network in 2009, proof of work was designed to solve the problems of double spending, which, if unchecked, could be a major issue for crypto projects. You might be asking, what is double spending? Well, let's say that Bob has $10. Basically, we want to make sure that Bob doesn't pay Alice $10 and then go and pay Sally $10 as well, even when he only had $10 to start with. One of the jobs of proof of work is to ensure that this does not happen. Well, this is easier on a centralized system because of the central authority, or in other words, one person can check and make sure that it didn't happen just by looking at their records. It is much more difficult and harder and even trickier to solve this problem on the blockchain, where millions of people have their own record. Double spending on a network is bad because it makes duplicate coins, it reduces the value of the coin, and it basically makes the currency worthless and unpredictable. So let's go into how proof of work works. Bitcoin, like every other crypto project, is blockchain based. Being a decentralized ledger, and you can actually watch our video about decentralized finance if you're curious what some of these terms mean, this technology is tasked with the responsibility of storing information permanently and safely. And as the name implies, blockchain comprises blocks, which are then verified and then added to the network's chain. Each of the blocks contain information of the recent transactions verified. So basically what a block is it is literally just a list of transactions in a specific time period. For example, one block might have Bob pays Alice $10, Alice pays Sally $5, and Alice pays Bob $5. Now, in reality, a real block can contain all the way up to 100 transactions, but you get the idea. Now, this means you can go back and see every transaction on the blockchain where the very first dollar came from. And the important part is new blocks are directly tied to the previous block, which makes it a chain. Now, miners, which are just people using their computers to participate in the network to add new blocks, execute proof of work each time that a new block is added. And it takes roughly 10 minutes on average on the Bitcoin network for miners to find the winning proof of work to validate transactions. Now, you might be wondering, what is actually happening when a Bitcoin block gets mined or validated? Well, it is actually some really difficult guesswork. There are essentially a ton of computers around the world guessing randomly until it hits that block's password, and then it's verified. The passwords can't be predicted, but they can only be guessed. And you can check it very quickly though to make sure that it is the right password. Now, this randomly guessing task is actually a hash function, and it's very important to proof of work, but it's also very technical and it's not completely needed here. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to see our future videos where we do plan to explain it after covering more basic topics. So by figuring out this really difficult password of a block, we can be sure that you spend a ton of time trying to guess and check it. And this is where proof of work comes in. You have proof that you spent a long time trying to find the password that works, and so you get a reward, which is a certain amount of Bitcoin. And then the transactions that are in that block are then validated, and the records of everyone on the network are updated to the new blocks. So let's move on to some of the features of the proof of work mechanism. Number one, it's secure. The singular purpose of integrating this system into crypto projects is to offer a reliable, safe, permanent, fair, and transparent system that will form a consensus based on network participants' contributions. So proof of work, like any mechanism consensus, is secure. Misbehavior from a miner on a proof of work mechanism may result in being cut off from attempting to add new blocks in the future. Also, carrying an attack on this system would take a ton of money and computing power. For example, to create fraudulent transactions, you would need to control 51% of the network's power, which is equal to hundreds of billions of dollars in hardware today. And because it's so expensive to make fake transactions, we can assume that it's safe and secure. Secondly is consensus, because miners broadcast the detail of a transaction when they add new blocks to the network. Now, once this broadcast is made, nodes leave what they're doing and they double check the transaction to ensure that the asset to be transferred has not been double spent. Remember, consensus means everyone has the same records. These miners have to compete with thousands of others to earn rewards in the form of Bitcoin. Now, this healthy competition gives birth to what is called a consensus mechanism, what we call proof of work. And this syncs all of these nodes to the same blockchain copy once a new block is added. Once a person solves that block's puzzle, they get a reward, and then they give the solution that they found to everyone else to add to their ledger so that they can start working on the next solution. Now, inherently flawed, proof of work has a ton of problems that have made it almost impossible for mass adoption. And I'm going to go over some of those problems now. Number one is impact on the environment. According to a 2019 BBC News article, proof of work is estimated to have used as much energy as all of Switzerland. And that's not all. As the network continues to grow and more people begin to jump on the Bitcoin frenzy, the energy usage increases. Now, the energy consumption level of this network makes it bad for the environment. However, there are also reports a large majority of miners are starting to use renewable energy, such as solar panels, to power their mining operations. Another problem of proof of work is its an inability to scale. The crypto market is growing at an unprecedented rate, and it has opened up opportunities for us individuals to make real money either as traders or miners on these networks. And with a 24-hour trading volume of around $50 billion, the market is booming. But remember, one block is solved around every 10 minutes, and these blocks do have a transaction limit. So at peak times, the fee to send money over a proof of work blockchain can be very high, even more than whatever the amount of money you're trying to send. For example, you might try to send $10 to your friend, but you have to pay a $20 transaction fee, bringing the total to $30. And lastly, a problem of proof of work consensus is no penalties. Now, the proof of work consensus acts as a central authority or sole administrator on a blockchain network, and a traditional authority or administrator tasked with the managing of a database will have strict penalties that are given out to individuals with malicious intent. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, this consensus mechanism does not have them. Aside from increasing the cost of attempting to add blocks to the chain or preventing them from attempting new blocks, miners with malicious intent are not really severely punished, and this gives them room for further misconduct. Proof of stake, however, does have a penalty for malicious attempts to create fake transactions. And again, if you're interested, you can check out that video in the link below. However, as we near the end of this video, let's go over some proof of work powered projects, because aside from being the sole mechanism on the Bitcoin and Ethereum networks, proof of work powers a couple of other networks as well, like Litecoin, Monero, Bitcoin Cash, Dcash, and Zcash. And many cryptocurrencies use proof of work because it does solve the consensus and double spending problem. So in conclusion, consensus mechanisms have proven to be quite helpful whenever it comes to maintaining the peace of crypto networks and eliminating double spending, which are huge problems. So in conclusion, proof of work has many benefits and many drawbacks, but it's working great right now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, click the like button and leave a comment of any question that you might have or future video ideas for us to create in the future. Thanks for watching this video, and we hope to see you in the next one. Imagine there's a dice with 50 different sides. Now they're all the same except for one, the magical side. And that has a special effect where when you roll it, you get $1. How many times would you roll that dice? You'd probably roll it a lot. That thing could just be sitting there printing money as you're rolling it. However, you could roll it once, get paid. You might have to roll it 8 more times until you hit that magical square again, get paid again, and then you might have to roll it 140 times without hitting the magical side until you rolled it the 141st time and then got paid. So basically, using statistics, we can say that roughly every 50 times you roll it, you will win $1. But sometimes it might take you 8 rolls, and sometimes it might take you 140 rolls. Now, imagine there is a mega magical dice, and it has 500 sides, but it also pays you $10 every time you hit the magical side. You would still have to roll it roughly 500 times to hit the $10 reward. Now, even though it has the same average payout, about 2 pennies each time you roll it, it'll take you a lot longer to get that payout. Now, this actually is not an issue if you're rolling it all night long, but for example, if you only roll it on your break at work, you could be rolling that dice the whole time and not get a single payout. Or you could get lucky and get a payout twice. Now, imagine that there is a mega dice and it has 5,000 sides, but it pays you $100 every time. Now scale that up. Take this example and extend it to a dice with 500,000 sides, but it pays you $10,000 whenever you hit the magical single side. So now it's basically a lottery. Would you rather roll this dice or the regular dice that only had 50 sides? So even though on average they pay you the same amount, which is 2 pennies a roll, you want the smaller one because you would get paid more often. Well, this is exactly what a mining pool is. So before we continue, you're going to want to go watch our What is Proof of Work video, because it explains the concept so well that your grandpa could understand it. And you're going to need to understand it before we move on in this video. So proof of work is when a computer is incentivized to solve a complex puzzle by guessing and checking until they get the right numbers. In the case of Bitcoin, you're trying to find a random mix of numbers and letters that you can put into a magical black box so that it outputs a certain number of zeros. And if you get the right number of zeros, you win the lottery, and we say that you have solved that block and that it will get added to the total blockchain. So solving it means that you get the reward, and for our example, we're going to use Ethereum. A block reward right now is around 3 Ethereum, or $9,000. You could solve that on your own. Here's the issue though. If you used a general personal computer to try mining Ethereum, it would take you around 3,494 days on average to solve the block on your own. Now this means you could solve it in 3 days, or you could solve it in 12 years. But on average, this is how long it would take you. Now the problem is, we want to mine Ethereum and we want to get rewarded for it now, instead of playing the luck game. So we take a whole bunch of other people who also want to mine, we group them together, and they work towards that block all at once. This takes the average time down from 3,494 days to 2 hours. And then whenever the group finds the solution and earns the reward, they split it up between everyone who has mined it, even if they particularly weren't the ones who found the successful solution. So those who work harder get a larger percentage. That way it's fair to them. Now the first question you might be asking is, what if we told them that we were mining harder than we actually were? Because it would be really easy to write a piece of code that told them that we were working way harder than we actually are. For example, instead of mining at 30 megahashes a second, we could easily write a program that tells the pool we are mining at 30,000 megahashes a second, and then get the majority of the block reward. So this is how they solved that problem. Instead of the pools taking a miner's word for it, the pools came up with something clever. Let's say that to solve the current block, we need 20 zeros in the hash. So what the pool does is they take any solution that you find with at least 10 zeros and they give you a share. So you're mining away and you find one with 10 zeros, one with 12 zeros, one with 18 zeros, one with 13 zeros, and one with 17 before someone else finds the solution to the block. Now, since these shares prove that you are actually mining, we submit those as proof that we were working towards the solution, instead of just having the pool take our word for it. So essentially, instead of getting paid once per year, the purpose of mining pools is to get paid once per hour. Even if what we're getting paid is a smaller amount, it is much more reliable, and that's the benefit of a mining pool. You should also know that most pools have fees, something very small like maybe 1%, to help support their development and pay for certain things like web hosting. But it is something you should be aware about. Alright, continuing this video, I'm going to be using an actual example of a mining rig that I have hooked up to a mining pool. So I actually have my 2 computers here and then a mining rig that I've built, and it's submitting shares to Nanopool. So this first box right here, 323, this is the current calculated hash rate. So as you can see down here, these are all the shares that I have been submitting to this pool. Based on the number of shares that I have submitted, they calculate my current hash rate. So the shares is how I prove that I'm actually working, because this number right here, this reported hash rate, I can make this number whatever I wanted to. So if we zoom in here real quick, you see this orange line right here that goes up and down, up and down? This is like rolling the dice. Well, this minute I rolled way more than I actually had, and then the next minute, as it's lower than the black line, I actually mined less than I should have. So it goes up and down, up and down. But on average, it creates this average hash rate for the last 6 hours. So that's this blue line, and this blue line should match the last reported hash rate, which is the black line. And as you can see, it basically does. It goes up and down, but on average, even these dips right here, they still roughly meet the black line. And if this is all confusing, basically what is happening is this current calculated hash rate is based on the number of shares, which is what the mining pool uses to try to figure out how fast I'm actually mining. Now this reported hash rate is how fast I say that I'm mining. What really matters is the calculated hash rate. That is what Nanopool pays you for. As you can see here, I have almost 0.05 Ethereum, which is actually the minimum payout. It says lowest that you can go. We're at around $163 here, and it says I'm going to be paid in around 7 hours, which these are really nice tools on the mining pool dashboard. So in around 7 hours, when I hit 0.05 Ethereum, I will be paid out to my Ethereum wallet address. Another thing that is really interesting is this is actually my mining rig. This is the dashboard for it. So basically I have 7 GPUs hooked up to my mining rig. Each one is roughly mining at 30 mega hashes, which is around 30 million hashes a second. And this number right here, you can see how many accepted shares they have given. And then based on those accepted shares, it roughly calculates the pool hash rate. So I'm actually mining at, hold on, it jumped around here. I'm actually mining at 207 million mega hashes. That's my true hash rate. That's how fast the GPUs are actually working. But this pool hash rate is how much the pool calculates that I am mining at. And that's what they pay me for. You can actually see the current high share score list, which if you know what this means, it's very interesting. So like this one right here, the minimum share is 10 gigahash. If you can find any share that's calculated at over 10 gigahash, it'll send it to the pool and it'll be an accepted share. For example, this one was 64 gigahashes. And because of that, it didn't show up on my high score. And I have been mining for a few days now. So anyways, as we end this video, I really hope that you guys have learned something about how mining pools work, and I hope that I've answered some questions maybe on how the payout works and what the purpose is. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to watch more videos like this. What is DeFi? Well, it stands for Decentralized Finance. In the past, we have always used centralized finance, which is where there's a central authority that controls the flow of money. The government and the banks control it. They don't really say they do, but they do. They can print more of it if they want to. They can stop you from borrowing it if they don't want you to. They can even stop you from having a bank account If they wanted to, at any time, they could have your money. They have your money, so they could change it, and you really couldn't argue against it. I mean, you could, but how would you prove it? You gave your money to them. It was based on trust. Also, if you're running a business, they limit what you can do. For example, right now, if you have a little magical tree business that may be for medicinal purposes, they can tell you not to bring in any of that money from the business to the bank, which seriously limits you. It means you can't deposit it or invest it or even use them to keep it safe. One more thing, traditional finance is quite expensive. Payday loans go up to 500%, credit cards can average 25%, and even personal loans can cost you 18% of your value. These are really high rates, but you pay them if you need to, because that's what you got. The alternative is decentralized finance, where there are no banks. Instead, there are pieces of code that run and act as a bank. They're open to anyone. They don't require you to trust them because they're literally a piece of code running a program. If you wanted to, you could read through it and verify that it's not going to scam you. They are also censorship resistant, and lastly, they are much cheaper than traditional centralized finance. Decentralized finance is built on three main things: cryptography, the blockchain technology, and smart contracts. If you don't know what these are, we highly recommend that you check out our other videos on these topics, where we break these topics down so simply using stories and examples and analogies that even your grandfather could understand them. Now, this is going to be a bit of a longer video, but it's a very broad and growing topic. Anyways, assuming you understand the cryptography, the blockchain, and how smart contracts work, let's dive into the 5 pillars of decentralized finance. Number 1, stablecoins. So first off, we need to understand the bridge of decentralized finance to centralized finance, and that is cryptocurrency that is matched to a real-world asset. For example, DAI, Tether, and USD coin are all what we call stablecoins. This is because their price is tied to the United States dollar. Think about it like this: when you buy one for $1, a new USD coin is minted. When you withdraw one, a USD coin is burned. So the coin is always worth $1 United States dollar. Now, the purpose of this is to have a reliable way to buy and sell certain coins without having to buy and sell them. Instead, we can just trade them. Here's an example of why this might be beneficial. Let's say you bought one Ethereum at $500. Well, now it's $1,000, and you want to sell because you think it's high. You want to take your profits. Without stable coins, you have to sell your Ethereum at a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Binance, and in return, they will give you some United States dollars for it. Now, of course, they're going to take a cut of that transaction because they want a fee, and they're going to take it. Also, the IRS makes you pay tax on any gains that you make from trading or selling. Coinbase and Gemini will be snitching that you made it, so you can't really get around it. The next step would be to wait for Coinbase or Binance to give them to your bank, and then withdraw them from your bank, because you don't really want the bank controlling your money. Well, a month later, Ethereum drops to $250, and you want to buy more, so you deposit your $1,000 back into Coinbase, wait a few days for the transaction to clear, because you have to wait, and then buy 4 Ethereum and hold them. Well, Ethereum rises again to $500 and you decide to sell. So you sell them at your centralized exchange. You bite the fee and then you wait a few more days for it to hit your bank account. See, in this example, there's a lot of fees, there's taxes, and there's waiting. Now, let's say we utilized a stablecoin like USDC. You bought 1 Ethereum at $500 and it raises to $1,000. Instead of going through all that headache, you trade your 1 Ethereum for 1,000 USDC and you just hold it. A month later, similar to the previous example, it drops to 250 and you trade your 1,000 USDC for 4 Ethereum. Then it raises to $500, and here's the beneficial part. Within 5 minutes, you sell your 4 Ethereum for $2,000. The fees were less than 1% because you used what we call a decentralized exchange to trade, which is something we'll explain later. But because of it, you were able to trade almost instantly. Plus, the USDC was secure and you trusted it because it's just code. It doesn't change. Unlike Coinbase or Binance or Gemini, which are controlled by the government and, more importantly, people. They have been hacked before. Anyways, we are getting off topic. So that's the purpose of stablecoin. You can be in the crypto sphere without actually using your government-owned bank. Now, in a lot of places, we take banks for granted, like in the US, but some countries are really limiting in how much money you can move around or what currency you can buy them from. In fact, in the United States, every transaction over $10,000 has to be vetted and approved by a bank. Meanwhile, using a stablecoin like USDC, you can move $10 million from one address to another without anyone blinking an eye for like a $5 fee. You could never do that with United States dollars. Number 2, borrowing and lending. So another important pillar of decentralized finance is lending and borrowing. In fact, a huge part of our current financial situation in the world is based on lending and borrowing money. So it would make sense that the blockchain could do it better. One of the reasons we can reliably lend and borrow with banks is because we usually put something down like 20% collateral so that if we never pay back the full loan, our government can come after us and throw us in jail or make us pay that money. In short, there are legal consequences for not paying a loan back. Well, with crypto, this is a problem because one of the pros of crypto is anonymity. You could put 20% down and run away with the rest of the loan never to be seen again. So we have to find a way to solve this. In fact, with the use of smart contracts, we can actually allow others to use our funds while still keeping custody of them. So let me go through a little example. Person A wants to earn interest on his coins, while person B wants to borrow some coins. So person A goes to Compound or Aave, which are two platforms that allow crypto borrowing and lending. And person A deposits his coins into a smart contract. If you don't know already, smart contracts are just code that run a particular function. In turn, what he gets are called C tokens or A tokens that are a representation of his original coin plus interest. Whenever he wants to, he can just turn his A tokens or C tokens into that smart contract that was created by Compound or Aave, and they spit out his original deposit plus interest. Now, the smart contract is created this way so that there's no human being that has to do the calculation or have to do the transaction. It's all automatic by code. So that solves person A wanting to earn interest by lending in a traditional way. In the borrowing portion, person B must do something called over-collateralize his loan. This means if he wants to borrow $100, he must put up $120. So that way, if he runs away and never pays back his loan, the smart contract is written in a way that it can pay back person A their coins plus interest. Now, at this point in time, you might be asking, what's the point of taking a loan if you already have the money? Well, you're probably thinking in United States dollars. Say you have 10 Ethereum worth $1,000 because they're each worth $100, but you don't want to sell them because you greatly believe in the Ethereum project. So you put them up as collateral and borrow $800 worth of Tether, which is a stablecoin pegged to the United States dollar. So you trade that $800 around, you make some money, you lose some money, you make some more money, and now it's time to pay back your loan. So you have $850 in Tether, and you pay back the original $800 loan to get back your 10 Ethereum. Well, in this little example, you made $50 from the little trades that you did, and you got lucky, but it has also been a few months, and Ethereum, like it has done in the past few months, exploded, and now they're worth $150 each. So now you have 10 Ethereum at $150 each, so now you control $1,500 plus the $50 you made trading. Basically, if you believe in Ethereum, and you have it, but don't want to sell it, and you want to use the value of it, you can take a loan out on it, hoping that it will be worth more whenever you cash it out. However, if you traded, you lost some money, you gained some money, and then you lost some money, and maybe you ended up with $750 Tether, you would have two options. Option A is to front the extra $50 to pay back the full loan, the $800, to get back all of your collateral, and option B is to just keep your $750 and lose your 10 Ethereum, which could be worth a lot. Now this might be information overload, but real quick, there is a second type of loan in crypto called a flash loan, which is a loan that lasts for like 10 seconds. If you could buy Ethereum for $10 on Coinbase and then sell it for $11 on Gemini, theoretically, you can make $1 every time you did that. And so you can use what we call is a flash loan to literally borrow millions of dollars. You don't have to put any money down. You just write a flash loan to borrow $10 million, you tell it to go buy Ethereum for $10 and then immediately sell it for $11, and then you pay back the original loan, $10 million, and all one small little smart contract that gets run in 10 seconds. Essentially, you made $1 million minus the fees that you had to pay for borrowing. But these fees are small because the lender knew that you would have to pay them back and that it was for a very short period of time. Now, this is a more advanced technique, but you could never perform this type of arbitrage in traditional finance. Number 3, decentralized exchanges. Okay, so I have a friend who traveled to London a few years ago from the United States. Now, of course, in London, the standard currency is euros, while over here in the US, it's dollars. So naturally, he had to visit a foreign exchange booth and trade out his dollars for euros. Unfortunately for him, the fee was like 15%, so he immediately lost 15% of his money because that's what foreign exchange traders do. Tourists don't know any better, and they need local money, so what they do is they take advantage of these these people? Well, when it comes to decentralized finance, instead of a foreign exchange trader, we have what is called a decentralized exchange, where you can exchange your coins and tokens for other coins and tokens. Now, the fees are usually very small, like less than 0.5%, which is a great benefit for anyone who regularly wants to trade their crypto assets. Most popular decentralized exchanges, or DEXs, work in a manner where investors pool their money together and then traders can trade that money. The fee of every trade that I mentioned earlier goes back to those investors, and it's all written in code so it doesn't change. A government can't step in and say, you can't buy Bitcoin anymore. The fees and the percentages that you change are locked too. They're written in code, so they don't change and they can't raise to crazy prices like 15%. Decentralized exchanges open the world up to a whole new variety of tokens and coins. For example, Coinbase, the first centralized exchange to go public, only allows you to buy and sell 32 cryptocurrencies at the moment. Since they are regulated by the government and have to abide by certain regulations, they very closely analyze each coin before adding it. The most popular decentralized exchange, which is called Uniswap, literally has hundreds, maybe even thousands of tokens that you can trade, and they aren't regulated by anyone. That's the decentralized part. There are billions of dollars locked up in these liquidity pools so traders can trade, but nobody can control these billions of dollars. They're just following a program that someone wrote. In fact, only investors can be the ones to pull out their money out of the pool. But if they did that, the lending rates would rise, and so new investors would come along and put their money in. So like I said earlier, the code can't be changed either. It's what we call immutable. So in the crypto space, we like to say that the code is the law. The government doesn't control it, the code does. And everyone has access to the code and it doesn't change. Uniswap is one of the major exchanges on the Ethereum network and it has billions of dollars in its pools. PancakeSwap is another exchange on the Binance Smart Chain network that also has a few billion dollars of liquidity. Number 4, insurance. Insurance is really easy to explain. For example, with car insurance, you pay $100 a month to protect your new Tesla. However, one day while using the autopilot feature, another car causes the autopilot to glitch and you drive into a ditch. Unharmed though, but you totally wrecked the car. Well, since you paid insurance, the insurance company pays you what the Tesla was worth so that you can go buy a new one. They use statistics to predict how many of their drivers will crash their cars and then use this data to predict how much they would have to pay each year to determine what the monthly price of the insurance should be, which is also called the premium. Well, with decentralized finance, the insurance company can be code. So let's go over an example. Let's say a farmer wants to buy crop insurance. So if his crops die, he still has income for planting them and taking that risk. We could write a piece of code on the Ethereum network that says, if there's any days this summer that are 90 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter, 4 days in a row, pay out Farmer Joe $100,000. However, to start this contract, he has to pay $2,000. So Farmer Joe can buy his crop insurance through what is called a smart contract, which is just code that sees if the conditions are met to pay him. So at this point in time, you might have two questions. How does the code know if it's 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and where does the $100,000 come from? Well, to connect the real world to the blockchain, we have to use something called oracles, which are trusted sources that become a bridge between the real world and the crypto world. We can create an oracle in our city that reads the temperature and is verified by a few people to make sure that it can't be frauded. Then the smart contract can reliably use it as a data source to decide if insurance requirements are met or not. Secondly, the $100,000 comes from other people buying insurance that bought the premiums, but maybe they didn't get paid out because the requirements were not met. Just like an insurance company makes profit, people who provide liquidity to any decentralized finance platform may be incentivized with an interest rate to earn on their deposit. In other words, some of the $100,000 may come from investors who earn money by lending their money. Lastly, we have number 5, which is margin trading. So margin trading is a whole new beast. Let me explain margin trading in the traditional world real quick, and then I'll explain it in the decentralized world. So you want to buy the Apple stock, and right now it is $100. So essentially what margin is it is a loan that will automatically sell your stock if the stock goes below your down payment. So to buy a $100 stock, you need a $100 loan. And the bank agrees to give you that $100 loan if you can give them a $20 down payment and a small fee of 5% a year. So here's two scenarios that could happen. The stock goes from $100 to $150. You have paper hands, so you decide to sell the stock and you get $150. You pay back $80 of your loan because the bank already had your original $20 as a down payment, and you keep the rest, which is a profit of $70. So essentially you made $70 by only spending $20. This means that you more than tripled your money, even though the stock only went up 50%. This is the power of margin. You use it when you think something is going to increase in value to multiply your own money. Now, let's take a look at another better situation. This is the second scenario, and it's if the stock drops to $50. Well, with margin, you actually have to sell as soon as the value of what you bought can't pay back your loan. So the stock starts out at $100, then it starts dropping, 90, 85, and then as soon as it hits 80, boom, the bank forces you to sell your one stock of Apple at $80 so that you can pay them back those $80 that you borrowed. So the $80 you made from selling the stock plus the $20 that you gave them as a down payment equalizes the loan. And now the bank has their original $100 they originally gave you. So you're free and clear, you've paid your loan back, but you didn't profit anything. In fact, you lost your original $20 that you put up as down payment. In centralized finance, to trade on margin, you usually need to be able to prove who you are, along with have a minimum of a few $1,000s to even have access to margin trading. The fees are also much higher than 5%. In decentralized finance, margin trading can be a lot quicker, open to anyone in the world with money, and a lot safer as well. So wrapping this video up, we have covered 5 big pillars in decentralized finance: stablecoins, lending and borrowing, decentralized exchanges, insurance, and margin. Hopefully now you can see the value add of decentralized finance and why so many investors are piling billions of dollars into this new technology. If you've learned anything from this video, we encourage you to hit that like button to reward our hard work and consider subscribing for more great crypto explainer videos such as this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.